So I like the question about the hype of artificial intelligence, and I'm going to address that first. Unfortunately, a lot of people use the term AI as marketing hype. So one thing that I've been very steadfast about in what I've done, I've never made announcements that I'm going to go out and build something, that I've entered into a collaboration with someone to that something 2 years down the track, some vaporware will appear. I've always just gone and done it. So 18 months ago, when we released Ailira research live for beta, it's open, anyone can look at it around the world. You don't have to go through a marketer. You can test it and see if it works. We tested it out, people liked it, made some tweaks, released it live. It's been live since December last year. Then we've released a consumer version of Ailira. I'll show you both of these. But to me it's important, as someone who is both in the legal community and in the startup community, that we have honesty with what we're doing. We don't make over-hyped claims, because as we know as professionals, whatever claims that you make, you have a reputation and it will come back for you. So, first of all, addressing the point of artificial intelligence. So, a definition of artificial intelligence is this: behavior that by a machine that is performed by a human would be considered intelligent. Now there is a lot that fits into this. Here we have the first AI game of checkers. Now, our way of describing this is a bunch of if this then that statements. Okay, we can have expert systems, we can have rules-based systems, we could have a system that's written out on punch cards and it appears to do something humanistic. The first chatbot, Ailira, was about 26 lines long, but engaged in Rodian psychology, deflecting questions back. Oh, why do you think this? Well, that's interesting. Tell me more about this. And people had interesting conversations with her. But a stronger version, and I'm not going to debate which is right or wrong, but it is that which utilizes machine learning to create an output beyond that of its creator's inputs. Now, if you're skeptical about artificial intelligence and you say this is not AI, the second definition is what encompasses it. So for example, Ailira reads over millions of cases and then you can ask her questions based on those, and those questions were not inputted beforehand. She has created something that is greater than the sum of its parts. So, a point about the relationship of humans and technology. Humans and technology are symbiotic. Without technology such as genetically modified plants over thousands of years, or fire, 99.9% of the human race would die. Without humans, technology is redundant and inanimate. But as humans, we like to think that we are masters of our domain, and this is scary for us. And each new iteration of technology we inherently reject and are afraid of until it becomes passé, and we are used to it, in which case we embrace it. Take the example of Garry Kasparov versus Deep Blue, 1996. After being defeated, Garry Kasparov realized that Deep Blue was trained on millions of pieces of data of previous games, and that if he had access to that same data, he would have been able to beat Deep Blue. Now the level of AI now is different, and he admits that he can't. But he realized that that it was not him versus a machine, it was Garry Kasparov versus a team of researchers who have very little skill at chess, utilizing Deep Blue. And he realized that a human plus a robot will always beat a robot and always beat a human. And so therefore he invented centaur chess. And so if a chess player uses, so the best chess players are now humans plus machines. Now we like to think that the human mind is geared towards understanding other humans. It is the largest piece of our mind. And so what we think of innately when we think of artificial intelligence is something just like a human but made of silicon. And so the first things we think of are HAL 9000, or Terminator, Skynet, Daleks. Okay? But in reality, that's really just our own vanity speaking. It is immensely difficult to create that. I think the pinnacle of artificial intelligence is something like R2-D2. R2-D2 can, besides being cute, can calculate complex hyperspace jumps that humans cannot. Serves well as human masters. He travels around and adventures, but never on his own. As Obi-Wan Kenobi said in episode 2, if droids could think, none of us would be here. So, what AI can do is we can take any system that is bespoke, such as law, standardize it, systemize it, package it, commoditize it, then automate it. Anything, whatever field there is, we can do this too. And I've had people say, but my area of law is special. And to that I say, the advances of technology are not limited by an individual's imagination. Now imagine, so here are some things that AI can do. You can gather facts. This is AI at present, and organize them. You can get advice on discrete questions. You can write letters of response within a confined field, negotiate terms within a certain bound, make decisions based on agreed facts. Now, does that sound like a lot of practice? Anything that we do with automatic thinking can be automated. So you're driving a car, you're contemplating something else. You're just doing it automatically. It's like riding a bike. We switch off our brains while we do this. Anything that can be automated. As opposed to something mindful, where we are fully engaged in using our mind, that is much more difficult to do. Now imagine a system that gathers data from parties, then guides the parties through a complex area of law, posing them questions and asking further information from them. Then at the end, it reconciles this with a number of data sources, and then to complete, it issues a binding determination that affects an individual's legal rights. Now, if that sounds like a lot of what we do in law, it is. And is that something that's hypothetical? No. The ATO's the Australian Taxation Office's e-tax software, used by millions of Australians each year, does exactly that. And there are dozens and dozens of examples. Artificial intelligence is not something that's in the future. It exists now and has for a number of years. Now, what is left for us humans? There are certain things that are immensely difficult for robots. Philosophy, morals, empathy, charisma, context choice. So I like to describe artificial intelligence as like Tony Stark's Iron Man suit. It can take Tony Stark to the level of Superman, but it still requires Tony Stark. So behind every machine, there is ultimately a person operating it. And that is humans and artificial intelligence are in symbiosis. Now let me give a brief demonstration. Now, I have my business development manager is German, and he likes to use a word called berühmte Vorführ effect, which means the famous demonstration effect. So if anything can go wrong, it will. So here is Ailira. This is an example that I did on the Australian Broadcasting Corporation's TV. They did a program on artificial intelligence, and we tested Ailira against a paralegal. So what we did is we took a research question here, similar as I would give to one of my juniors. It regards payment of dividends from a consolidated group, and whether that is taxable, and whether anti-avoidance rules apply. So here we have a background questions. Ooh. Oh, what happened there? The berühmte Vorführ effect. Well, how do I? Well, I can read it perfectly. I don't know if I'm.
So you still need a human.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. So here it is. Here is a standard memo. We have questions. Here are the questions: payment from dividend from a trading company to a holding company. Is this assessable income? Now the shares of the trading company are owned by a trustee company as a bare trust. They're going to be incorporated, then consolidated, pay a dividend out, and then wound up. Is that dividend taxable? And it's not taxable. Does the tax anti-avoidance rules apply? So now, with a traditional keyword search, what happens is that I'm going to search, and this is what my the paralegal who competed against Ailira, she started searching for dividends and search for dividend and consolidated group. But what we're going to get Ailira to do, she's just going to copy this whole thing and copy. And now here is Ailira. I'm going to go here to discover. And I'm just going to paste that whole question. No. Paste. There we go. Now I'm going to ask her to see what she can find. Now just note, this is a number of paragraphs of text. Now what she has done is she has read through millions of cases, and she has highlighted what she thinks to be within them things that answer our main question. Now we can see here that there are a number of things that everything is vaguely similar. Let's look at the first one here. Something about issued capital of company A consists of 2 shares. That looks promising. So I'm going to click on this. And now she has highlighted within the very document what she thinks is the answer. Now I'm going to read through this, and we're going to read through the background facts. We've got 2 Australian companies. She's found that they've got some shares, and it's slightly different fact scenario, but ultimately the concepts are the same. And if we see the answer, the dividend will not be assessable income. There is the answer. So now, if I wanted to find every other case that relates to this, I can search through. I might want to do a more rigorous search, but ultimately what we have here is a pattern matching. Now, I just want to give you some notes about this in practice. We are not looking for a keyword search. We do not necessarily have any or all of the same words. Ailira reads over millions of cases and understands the English language based on them, and therefore you can ask her questions and she will return things that are related, that have the same relation. Might not have any of the same words, but now, how does this work in one line? Fancy maths. Okay, she doesn't understand this. She comes to a mathematical understanding of the English language based on what she reads. Now, I have here her applied to Australian tax law. I have set Ailira up for a number of firms privately across their own data, so they can search through and find missing fees. The advice that the partner who left a year ago wrote 18 months ago, which is exactly on the point you've got now, which is otherwise lost intellectual property. So that's what Ailira can do. That's Ailira's research. Similar to, we're talking about Ross Intelligence, but that's based on Apache Solar. That's what IBM's Watson Retrieval Rank is built on. Whereas this is a unique system. So, secondly, once you take that building block of being able to search through information, you can apply it in a number of different ways. So I can then say, let's pattern match and say, what do I think the case is likely to be? What is the outcome of this case going to be? Or let's find every document that is a duplicate here, or let's find something that answers this particular question. Let's ask a question and find it. Now, part of this is, now I've built this into an expert system, usable for the consumers. So here, and we are currently, we have just released this live in the last couple of weeks. So Ailira can assist people with business structuring, or we can ask her general questions. Now what we can have here is we can have conversations with her. We can chat backwards and forwards. What's most important to you? let's see, protecting my personal assets. Okay, or I can ask her questions. I can ask her questions backwards and forwards. I can have a conversation back with her. Okay, so what we have, in this way, Ailira can give advice, you can ask her questions, and she can act as a triage system, gathers information to pass on to lawyers. Again, everything is about going back to Tony Stark's Iron Man suit. Now, to finish off, I would like to show, I had these up here in case it didn't work. Where is artificial intelligence now? This is the Gartner curve. Here we have written here a period of over time and the expectations. Now, when technology first comes out, we get a massive increase in expectations. Now, things like virtual personal assistants, conversational user interfaces, machine learning, they are right at the top of the hype curve. Okay, but as they go on, the expectations come down, and people see, look, here it is, I can touch and feel it, this is what it does. In fact, one of the problems that I've had with Ailira is people expect her to be more human than is ever possible. They say, oh, I want you to write my entire advice for me. It's like, no, she can find an answer for you. And you go, oh, that's really useful. I was expecting it to be like, how? So I have good, bad, and ugly news out of this. Bad news. 39% of jobs lost to artificial intelligence. Yes, this wipes out a lot of what our juniors do. They don't need to sit in a dungeon doing discovery. And no job is completely gone. People go, oh, we're going to replace lawyers. No, we replace specific tasks. Good news. As we reduce the price, we shift along the demand curve, which leads to an increase in quantity. With Ailira's consumer version, I can produce legal advice at 25% of its ordinary cost. The amount of people who we have who just go, wow, I wanted a will and it was going to cost me $1,000 and you can do it for $150 while I'm doing my shopping. This is amazing. I just put this off and off. Wow. So we can apply this to many areas of law and massively increase the demand for legal services. I have a hugely rosy view of the future because of this. And we have more interesting work. What is left for lawyers is the creative, empathic work. Now, if you're doing something that doesn't have creativity, or empathy, the more logical your work, the more difficult that is. Now, 65% of our children will work in jobs that do not exist today. My parents could not imagine Facebook app designer as a job. Ugly news. There is no reason why existing service providers need to keep the work. Now, my girlfriend, who's a speech pathologist, used Ailira to pass an Adelaide University tax law exam. She has no knowledge about tax, but she can pass the tax law exam. So, what lawyers need to do is, if they don't embrace artificial intelligence, someone else will. And the lawyer of the future might be an accountant or a social worker. And that is the ugly news. And on that I'll finish.
Thank you, Adrian. Adrian purports to present a rosy picture. I can see some very worried looks in the room. You see their legal bills dropping by 75%. We're going to explore a couple of things for the rest of the session with our panelists, because we've got someone from private practice, we've got a very senior judge, and we've got a technologist. And we want to look now at what is actually happening in the legal industry. And that's where we're going to start. So, Inglun, what's happening in your world? What are the most exciting developments you're seeing in artificial?